The smaller the better, where a reduction in field size in combination with field robotic technologies can get us closer towards pesticide-free agriculture. My name is Kathrin Grahmann and I'm postdoc at the Leibniz Institute of Agricultural Landscape Research and scientific coordinator of the patchCROP experiment. This conference contribution will firstly give an introduction on recent challenges to design novel agricultural landscapes by using digital tools, and provides a discussion of the experimental approach highlighting advantages, innovations, and limitations of digital tools like field robots. In the second part, I will present a description of the experimental design of the newly implemented landscape experiment itself, named patchCROP, and present its major research questions, selected digital measurements. By collecting and combining environmental crop and soil data, we can better adapt crop management under site-specific conditions and thus protect or increase ecosystem services, biodiversity, and climate. The vision of ZALF's agricultural landscapes of the future include three key achievements: innovative site-specific cropping methods that combine food production with the protection of biodiversity and the maintenance of ecosystem services. Second, the promotion of the design of new field arrangements, significantly smaller field sizes and new field shapes that replace large uniform and monocrop fields. And thirdly, to bring forward the use of ecological principles and new technologies that have the potential to reduce chemical pesticides in small structured fields. New technologies, like wireless internet-based monitoring systems, screen landscape parameters in real time with sensors in the soil, in the water, in air, and with satellites. The acquired data from different levels are connected with each other and can provide recommendations for sustainable adaptation of the cropping system. Crop diversification in agricultural landscapes can significantly contribute to design sustainable cropping systems. A central hypothesis is that the diversification of landscapes can be used to exploit synergies in order to achieve different sustainability goals. The term of agricultural diversification requires clarification. When I use it, I refer to spatial or temporal crop diversification. Spatial diversification can be expressed by changes in field size or form, different crops with different root systems, intercropping, or site-specific management through precision agriculture. Temporal diversification can be reached by seasonal shifts of the cropping cycle, by different planting dates, use of alternating winter and summer crops, or by skewing field activities like tillage. In ecological research, the term of crop heterogeneity is more common to express agricultural diversification. It can be separated into compositional and configurational crop heterogeneity, whereas the compositional one refers to crop diversity measures like crop rotation, intercropping, or mixed cropping. Configurational heterogeneity, on the other hand, is comparable to spatial diversification and refers to different spatial field patterns. For the purpose of spatial diversification, new field arrangements are investigated and are hereafter called patches, which are small structured field units, a subdivision of the large heterogeneous field into smaller, more homogeneous units that correspond to the potential of the site. Agricultural diversification was reported to improve ecosystem services on many levels. The improvement of beneficial insect habitat, better crop rooting, and hence better soil structure, pest repression, or increased soil suppressiveness, among many others. When we talk about global trends and challenges in agriculture, digitalization is a leading topic. More sustainable and resilient cropping systems could be developed through new digital technologies. The era of Agriculture 4.0, using artificial intelligence, machine learning, and field robotics provide new possibilities. By collecting and combining environmental crop and soil data, we can better adapt crop management, harvest, and operational planning under site-specific conditions. Some considerations on benefits for the use of field robotics and new field arrangements might be that small machines could be cheaper for operations with high wage costs. The cost advantage of large field machines are largely due to lower wage costs, but labor costs would be reduced to a minimum with autonomous machines. The autonomous driving of tractors and robots decouples activity from working time and therefore redefines and improves manpower and time flexibility. Big machinery causes soil compaction through high weight, whereas field robotics could lower the ground pressure. Patches and natural field shapes require smaller working widths than today's field shapes, which would lead to reduced turnaround time with the use of field robots. Targeted, precise and need-based applications of pesticides and mineral fertilizer by field robots would achieve an overall reduction of external inputs and reduce production costs. And lastly, robots are estimated to consume 30 to 40% less fuel compared to big machines, or even more if solar energy driven. However, the introduction of field robotics into daily farmers' routine is far away from being normal. There are several challenges regarding an implementation of temporal or spatial diversification in agriculture. First, cropping of smaller field sizes or higher crop diversity increases labor if no robots are available. Increasing diversity of crop species also opens the possibility to produce niche crops, which are difficult to sell on the market. The crop management itself of special or underutilized crops requires crop production knowledge, which might be limited. There could be lack of adequate planting and harvest machinery for these diverse crops, and depending on their requirements, logistics of different farm supplies is getting complicated. Finally, we also need to have in mind that the assumption, the bigger the better, is firmly rooted in our heads. Going back to small field sizes or multi-cropping needs also a mind shift. But even if farmers would like to work with field robotics, investment costs are high. In the table, you can see some estimations of product prices for different robot concepts. But in the same study, it was also shown that the operating costs of the presented robots are similar or even lower than those of the today's large-scale machinery. This is leading us to the next question: how and why can we design future cropping systems for optimal use of field robotics? We need an experimental field infrastructure that provides the space and scientific background to test for digital tools supporting sustainable agricultural practices. Here, we need to include 3 research concepts that provide the possibility to simultaneously advance in the design of agricultural systems for the future. First, we require the landscape context using agricultural system research approaches and comprehensive background data. Second, we need to provide a living lab that continuously counts with experimental research activities, interdisciplinary points of view, systematic and continuous monitoring of soil, crop, and environmental data, and is proactive also in looking for outreach activities. Lastly, the experimental platform needs to make a compromise with a co-design and co-innovation approach that ensures innovative ideas and guarantees a high level of engagement with farmers' needs. The patchCROP experiment is a long-term experimental infrastructure at SALV, which was recently implemented in April this year. The large amount of data from multiple disciplines, which are planned to be collected over many years, will give insights into the functioning and performance of future cropping systems and how we can support and identify synergies with emerging digital technologies. Digital tools in patchCROP support the monitoring of agricultural landscapes, opening the space for their calibration and further development, supported by the knowledge generated in this project. patchCROP sets one of its sustainability foci on chemical pesticide reduction by increasing compositional and configurational heterogeneity of crops, fields, and also in future agricultural landscapes. The experimental approach and design for the landscape experiment are newly designed field arrangements with a 70-hectare large field, surrounded by more than 700 hectares of agricultural fields. Site-specific small structured field patches of half an hectare were organized in 2 different yield potential zones, each zone with a specific crop rotation, which can be seen in the table below. The field is characterized by very heterogeneous soil conditions, with varying soil texture, as you can observe in the map on the right side. In addition, 3 different land use intensities were implemented with varying pesticide use reduction strategies and flower strips to promote landscape biodiversity. The first land use intensity comprised business as usual with conventional pesticide application. The second one uses flexible and crop-dependent approaches to reduce pesticides, and the third one is similar to the second, but with additional flower strips next to the patches that additionally support pest and disease suppression in the neighboring crops. From the design, we can derive the overall objectives of this landscape experiment, where I mention those that coincide with the premise of this conference contribution. To minimize the use of chemical synthetic pesticides by promoting the spatial and temporal diversification within the agricultural landscape, and to increase the use of automated and sensor-controlled technology for site-specific crop arrangements to reduce labor costs and to reduce the use of big machinery. Together with Julius Kühn Institute and the agricultural enterprise Comturei-Lietzen, where the experiment is located, we have developed and decided on several strategies for the summer and winter cropping cycle, which have the potential to reduce the application of chemical pesticides. Some are listed in this slide. To reduce herbicides, we selected diverse crop rotations and the use of cover crops to avoid bare soil. Additionally, mechanical weed control by harrows and hoes is conducted in the land use intensity windows 2 and 3. The inclusion of wide diverse crop rotations also supports the reduction of insecticide and fungicide applications as they serve as disease breaks. Landscape elements like perennial flower strips support the increase of natural antagonists. The selection of multi-resistant varieties and electron seed treatments would further reduce the use of fungicides. In this slide, you get some impressions of the different measures and actions that occur during the summer cropping cycle. In the picture on the left side, flower strips of land use intensity 3 are displayed just next to the soybean crops. In the photo on the right side, different land use intensities of soybean are depicted, with conventional weed management including the use of herbicides, and a reduced herbicide approach with mechanical weed control next to each other. As patchCROP was initiated by SALV just half a year ago, up to now we count with 2 major third-party projects, which are highly involved and connected with the patchCROP research activities. Participants of both projects will present patchCROP-related work in this conference just after I have finished, to present their research questions and advances regarding new field arrangements. With DACIS, Marco Donat will talk about how to create patches with a web-based app, and Ichel Hernandez from PhenoRob will introduce some ideas about crop modeling approaches that can be applied in diversified cropping systems like patchCROP. Apart from conventional manual crop and soil measurements like leaf area index, NDVI, plantate, or volumetric moisture content in the topsoil, we install little by little several digital tools in order to monitor and measure important research questions. Proximal sensing was conducted with different soil scanners. Remote sensing is conducted bi-weekly. Digital yellow traps will be installed in rapeseed for the monitoring of pests and beneficial insects. And an Internet of Underground Things LoRa soil sensing system was put into operation a few weeks ago. In order to account for biodiversity measurements, beneficial insects and birds are monitored continuously in the experiment in neighboring fields. How could we combine different research activities in agricultural diversification with field robotics? Several field robots are already available, prototypes are tested, and new types are under development. The range of applications is manifold. For the present field try, and according to its research questions, 2 applications of field robotics deserve more interest. Field robots that are able to detect and remove weeds precisely by camera detection and parallel image algorithm analysis. Another reasonable use would have aerial vehicles that conduct point applications of fungicides or insecticides. Therefore, we cordially invite the scientific community in this conference to take action in this interdisciplinary and exciting project, and are looking forward to collaborate with researchers from many different disciplines to continue working on the development, support, and implementation of new digital technologies in patchCROP. In this context, we already prepared an informative leaflet for companies, project partners, and interested stakeholders that shall promote and encourage the participation in our landscape experiment. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to receive your questions and comments.